Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heart, an IGTV series created by Dr. Ambreen Mohammed and myself, Dr. Amisha Gupta, where we speak to today's cardiologists and really get to the heart of things. We're thrilled to have today's speaker and guest, Dr. Jay Mohan, a newly minted attending and interventional cardiologist who just moved to Michigan. We're so happy that he's here and thrilled to have him speak with us today. So Jay, just to get started, tell us about your path. Tell us why cardiology and why interventional cardiology.
My dad was an interventional cardiologist, so he was really good at brainwashing at a young age. No, actually, I remember as a little kid, one of the first things like he put on the side of my bed was a heart model. And I always admired what he did. I come from a really small town in Michigan, so everyone knew him wherever we went to restaurants or to the grocery store. Everyone would always come up to him and be so thankful that he treated, their family member or themselves. And as a little kid, it's so awesome to see that, your own people in your own community, that they look so highly upon your dad. As an interventional cardiologist, you don't have a lot of time to go to basketball games and things like that. So I never, at first when I was a little kid, I was kind of, disappointed. But then when I saw how grateful everyone was for what he did, it really opened my eyes to how great interventional cardiology was. And then I kind of took a crazy path. In my eyes it's crazy, but I went to Michigan, University of Michigan, and coming from a small school, I wasn't really adequately prepared for the life at a huge college. So I kind of struggled my first year, and I played catch up the whole way through. And I did pretty well on the MCAT, but I didn't kill it. I wasn't a big standardized test taker at the time. And then I applied for med school, and I think I only got 3 interviews, and they were all to osteopathic schools. And coming from Michigan, osteopathic medicine's pretty big. Looked as the same way as allopathic. So my dad was like, "Don't take time off, just go straight to school." So I did that, and I had amazing experience at med school. When I struggled in undergrad, it taught me how to study for med school. So I did really well in med school and ended up getting my #1 choice in residency at Swedish Covenant in Chicago. And it was awesome because 2 of my best friends joined me there. And so it was like an extension of med school, and it's very easy to just get your feet wet as an intern when you have 2 people always looking after you. And then I will say one mistake I made was I went somewhere that didn't have cardiology. And so that was another thing I had to learn. And I luckily got a cardiology spot by, one of my audition rotations. I worked really hard and got it. And then same issue happened where they didn't have an interventional cardiology spot there. So out of some sort of miracle or some weird thing that happened, my wife was actually pregnant with my first kid, and she had a potential high-risk pregnancy, and she was sent to Beaumont for a month. And I called the coordinator there and changed my rotation, and I stayed there at the hospital, so I was the first one to leave and first one to show up and last one to leave. And luckily I got a spot there, and cut full circle, that's where my dad trained.
Wow.
Yeah, so it ended up being really awesome, and it was always my dream, and now here I am ready to start.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. I think it's always so interesting to hear like what people's stories are. And I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, was because everyone always assumes that doctors just have this like super easy straight path to, wherever they get to. And no one really realizes like what the struggles and, all of this stuff that we have to go through in order to get to our end destination. So I think it's important for people to, understand people's struggles, because it's more relatable, and it shows people that irregardless of whatever circumstances you had, you did it. And how cool is that you came full circle to a place that your dad, trained at, and now you train there and you graduated from there. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and it shows like your perseverance, right? It shows that if you want it enough, that you'll find a way. So that's great. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and everyone always asks me, what's the most important thing to do to get to a spot in residency or fellowship?
Yeah.
And yeah, board scores matter, but it's more about the people you meet and the connections you make and the networking. If you get someone to make a phone call for you, that will go longer than anything else, especially if it's someone that has a great reputation from that program. And that's what happened to me. My mentor called for me, and I think that's also why I got a spot. But it was all because, I really wanted it, and I pushed for it. And, I didn't start off the best, but then it's a learning process the whole way through. You learn from your mistakes.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So my next question is going to be, obviously you have a lot to juggle with your family, with work and with social media, since you're such a big social media star now. So how are you able to have a work-life balance? And I think, obviously you're not practicing as an attending yet. So this is more applicable to when you were in training. How did you maintain that balance?
It's really tough. I mean, at first it was easy because I didn't have any kids, but then when you start having kids, it becomes really tough. And I give a lot of credit to my wife. She does a lot by herself. And, I try to be there as much as possible because, like I said, my dad wasn't there for a lot of the times when I was growing up. And I always said I would be there for my kids because I find that more important. I think it's just our generation. We kind of want to be around our family and have a better life. So the way I did it was it was all time management. So every second that I had, I made sure I was doing something that I needed to get done so that I didn't have to do it at home or didn't have to take away from the time I spent at home. Mm-hmm. And then I also, I tried to manage my time so that I was around for my family. And then when they went to sleep, I did work. So literally it's a lot of busting your behind to do it. But, if you're good at time management, big time, I learned organization, making sure I hit deadlines and planning things out, that all really, really helped me. And I find that I'm going to do that as an attending too, because I want to be there for my kids to grow up, and I'm going to find a way to do it. So I know everyone says interventional cardiology, they have no life, but it's all about the group you join and the life you make. It's all, you're the doctor. You have the ability to manage your own schedule. So you can do whatever you want to do in the end.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, you make a great point there where you can manifest what you want out of your career, right? And even when you're in training, if you have the organization skills, if you can learn to, give up certain percentages to different areas of your life, you can do what you want to do. And the thing that I like to tell my fellows, especially my first year fellows, is, it's kind of like those houses where it's all full of trampolines and you're running around trying not to fall. But then, you start to get your flow, you start to get your bounce, and you can go from category to category, from one thing in life to the other, as long as you kind of get your flow. And so, like you said, if you want it, and this just goes with your theme, your perseverance from the start in medical school to your time management. So, I think that's a big thing that we need to show in medicine, is that, it's not just one picture that we have on social media that, this is our lifestyle. There's a lot of components to it, and there's a lot of organization behind it. So, on that note, how do you work in with your organization, your social media, and, what are your plans with your platform?
It's funny. I started it all because I know you guys are going to have Ali Hayter on the podcast, or on this also, your heart doc. It's funny because my sister knows him really well. They train together, and so she was the one that told me, hey, check out this guy on Instagram. He's got a really good page that's teaching people for cardiology, and I was taking echo boards at the time, and you guys know echo boards is like the worst board exam to take because they want you to fail that test.
100% that test is made to make people fail.
To break you.
Like, what are they even asking? I don't even, I can't.
I know the most ridiculous stuff, but you have to know the minutia, right? And you have to know like everything for that test. And it's, after that test, I almost felt like that was the height of my career. I've been going down since that point, but during that time, I always told myself, if I can teach it, that means I know it really well. So I thought the best way for me to reinforce my echo knowledge was maybe if I post it on the internet, it has to be legit because, I'm a doctor posting on the internet. It can't just, be full of errors and things like that. So I ended up doing that, and that helped me really remember things like congenital and, hemodynamics and, things that, no offense, can be sometimes either boring or really, really difficult for at least for a plumber like me. It really helped me reinforce those topics. And then after that, it just became really fun to see all these people interact with you. And they're so grateful that you're providing free education. And, you're giving not only your education, but you're giving a perspective on how to be a doctor. You're giving perspective on, what stances you take in life. And, you actually almost become a mentor on that channel for so many people. And it's just another way, to help other people. And I can't even imagine if I had access to this kind of content when I was going through med school. I mean, it's an amazing place to learn and like I said earlier, network with other people. And I've met some awesome people through social media, and especially during COVID, I mean, they helped me so much. Running when I had to run the ICU and I had no idea how to calculate, minute ventilation and stuff. I totally forgot all this stuff. Yeah. And, I'm talking to Dr. Rutland and Daniel Bellardo and Ali Hyder, and we have like a chat going, and, we're going through the most recent literature, and I'm showing up to the ICU and I'm telling these people all this stuff, and they're like, how do you know this? How do you know this already? It's day one. And I only knew it because I have all of this information being fed to me all the time, and it's coming from credible people. So I don't have to like do a lot of background research on it. So, I mean, I think that's probably been the biggest impact that social media has had on me, is just the overall networking that it's provided.
Yeah. You have a big presence on a couple platforms, Instagram and Twitter. And I think you've done a really amazing job of kind of tailoring and capturing your audience and connecting with your audience on both sides. Have you seen any disadvantages?
I was actually just going to ask that. You asked that.
I mean, you kind of open yourself up to a lot of criticism by putting stuff out there. And also you open yourself up to, you have to be able to reinforce the knowledge that you have. So, as a fellow, like a first year or second year fellow, I didn't know a lot. So, I'd get comments and people would ask me things, and maybe I'd give them my opinion, but it wasn't like the best, what should be done or what, the best people are doing. So I learned from those mistakes. I learned that, don't be insulting, don't be critical, be professional at all times. People are going to say ridiculous things to you. I mean, like some of the direct messages I get are just ridiculous. Really? I can't imagine what some other people that have even bigger accounts and maybe are even more political than me get. But, you're a doctor. So, you get your message out and you're going to get criticism and, people that don't like your message back. But, if anything, it allows you to see how the other side, and my role has always been, if people are thinking opposite of me, why, like figure out why they are, and then maybe teach them or at least give them insight to why you think the way you do. It's just another thing of, we all worry about being good at medicine, but we also have to be good teachers. And that's the biggest thing of, if your patients love you and they trust you, they're going to learn from you and they're going to do what's right. And I think that's been the hardest thing, is like, don't go after the kill, like you have to be, look at it on both sides and always be justified and the moderate person in the room.
Yeah, I really like that. And I I think it's really important to be humble. It's important to understand also that you're not always going to know everything, and that's okay. And there will be a lot of people that will question you, especially, I presume as your following has gotten bigger, I'm sure that, you've gotten even more DMs or whatever messages, saying XYZ to whatever you've been, putting out there. But it's always important to kind of have that other perspective as to why is this person saying this and what can I learn from this? And, maybe there is some, something that I can put out there that could be a little bit different, that could be more positive. Like everything, I feel like everything that people think that everything that doctors put out is, the be all end all, and they try to find mistakes in every single thing that we say, whether it's related to medicine, whether it's related to politics, whether it's related to, the current times in terms of what we're going through with the pandemic, or, sexism in medicine, or, race or whatever. People will always try to question everything. So, it's hard to always be right? I mean, you just have to do the best job that you can. So I really like how you handle that.
Yeah, and I can see why doctors don't go into politics, because it's just, we don't have the mind for it,
Yeah.
It's so much, you just have to deal with so much crap. But,
Yeah.
but this, I think like people getting on social media as physicians and being liaisons for the community, and, it's a platform. And in my opinion, most doctors have really, they're ethical people, and they have level heads, and they, it's very hard to be like a racist or segregist as a doctor, because you have to treat everybody, and you have to look at them as, your patients. So I think, having more doctors on platforms like this and giving their opinions, I think that's good. It's good for people to hear, that those educated people talk, and maybe hopefully the public will start to listen.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I feel too, in terms of like, we're trained to be logical. We're trained to look at the evidence. We're trained to look at both sides. And on social media, sometimes it can be very polar. And having more physicians, like you said, on different platforms, hopefully, helps not level out anything, but at least sift through some of the tons of data or statements or proposals that people put onto social media, so that at least, just from our training background and our use of critical thinking, we have that perspective as well on those platforms.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right. So my next question is, what kind of tips would you give to either medical students or current trainees, or even early career cardiologists, just in general, like at least for, med students and trainees who want to go into cardiology, or maybe I think it might be a little bit hard for you to give tips to early career attendings, since you are a newly minted attending yourself. So maybe more focused.
Or maybe like into those who want to go into interventional cardiology, because that is a hot field.
Yeah.
I mean, starting from the med school standpoint, I think number one, go in with an open mind. Everyone always says you want to be an orthopedic surgeon or you want to be an interventional cardiologist, but then you kind of ignore things during med school that maybe you'd find a new passion into. And then also you should always have a plan A, B, and C, because things don't always work out. And just because they don't work out, that doesn't mean you can't get to where you want to go. So I think that's really big for med students. The other thing I think is work hard. This is the only time you have where you're basically there to learn, and you're not nothing is expected of you. And all you're there is to, try to increase your knowledge and be, a future doctor. So don't go in there thinking, man, they're making me see 5, 6, 7 patients, because that's good. You should want that, because I'll tell you, especially coming from like an osteopathic program, we got slammed all the time. So then when I became a fellow, and then now I say when I'm an attending, when I see 20, 30 patients a day, that's nothing, because I'm used to it.
Right.
So if you can get that training early, you want that. You don't want to go home at 2:00 every day when you're a med student. I know it's awesome to do it, but you're missing out on things. And also, if you do get out early, go do something. What I always did was whatever diagnosis or whatever cool case I had seen that day, I read about it that day. And I did that for just one thing. All you had to do was read 5 pages, 6 pages and something. And that will go such a long way if you do that, because you reinforce what you saw clinically, and that's going to make you, kind of understand things and what you could have done differently clinically too. So that's going to be really huge. And then also, go to a place if you want to do like a fellowship or advance something else. Go to a place that has it. I think that was a mistake I made, because if you're there every day and working hard, they're going to take you. And most fellowships take a lot of in-house people. So I made that mistake, and I was kind of behind the 8 ball. And I knew that if I was at some place for 3 years, I would have had a spot, no doubt. But I wasn't. So I literally had a 4-week period to prove that I, deserved a spot. And so, luckily it worked out for me. But I would say if I could go back and redo it, I would go somewhere that had a fellowship. That way I knew I had that opportunity, at least, even if I switched my mind, I had that opportunity to go. And that's the same thing with interventional fellowship. And then for intervention, all the general fellows out there that are going in interventional fellowship, enjoy your time during general fellowship. It's actually awesome. And don't just be so involved in the cath lab that you forget, nuke and CT and echo and general and all that, because you'll realize that to make a good interventional cardiologist, it's just like to make a good cardiologist, you have to have the foundation. So the best internists are always the best cardiologists, and the best interventional cardiologists are always the best cardiologists, because, you need to know everything about your patients, and you need to know everything about the disease process that's going on. So don't ignore things just because you're so diehard interventional. I actually went into cardiology wanting to do interventional like my dad, and then I got destroyed by STEMI call as a general fellow, and I hated it. I hated it. And I decided that maybe I was going to do EP. And I was actually applying to EP, and one of my mentor actually told me, he's like, "Hey Jay, go do an EP rotation at Beaumont, and if you like it, because it's a bigger place, they do a lot of procedures. If you like it and they do SVT ablation and you love it, then do it." And so I went, and the first week when they were getting all excited about seeing the hiss, I was like, what the heck? I can't do this. And so thank God he told me that, because I realized, STEMI call as a first-year fellow, when you're the one holding the sheet or pulling the sheath and you're, handing balloons, is not the same thing as you're the one leading the room, and, the patients are talking to you and you're the person that saved that person's life. That's totally different. So thank God he told me that, because that would have been a huge mistake, and I would have regretted it. But now I'm really glad that I didn't, and I'm here. And then lastly, for the early career people, I'm early career, so it's hard for me to tell you what to do as an attending, but I will say, as a fellow trying to get a job, make sure you go do stuff early. I always tell everyone this, and I'm a big proponent of networking. So you'll never get anything if you don't ask for it. And especially in these private groups, they're not going to come knock on your door and ask you to join them. They want you to ask them, do you guys have jobs? Are you looking for anybody? Talk to everybody and ask everybody. Even if, you get 5 or 6 people say maybe, you at least have those possibilities, because you don't want to enter December and January with no leads, because then the whole last 6 months of your interventional fellowship, you're going to be scrambling for a job, interviewing, and you're not going to be able to, really enjoy the time when you finally refined your skills, and you can enjoy just learning things before you have a job to start. So I would say that's huge, and I definitely recommend, going out there and asking people.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with your points. I think, training is the only time where you have multiple backup systems in place, right? And so that's your time to be a sponge and to soak it up, and, to do everything and anything. And I always like to preach to my cardiology fellows and to the residents, if you're presenting a patient to me, I want you to prove why it's the heart, but I also want you to prove why it's not the heart, you know? And so it's important to go that extra mile while you're in training. And like you said, learn about the disease process, learn about the whole system and how it affects that. You know, and I think also what you said in terms of if you're putting in that hard work, it does show. So in your experience, you know, and in your path, how were you able to show that and get a mentor or a sponsor to help you, you know, to get to where you're at today?
You know, a lot of it's luck. A lot of it is, you know, putting yourself in those situations. So I always told myself, and my dad always said this, and, you know, my wife's like all over the place and does everything. So, you know, how could I be lazy, or how could I be the one that wants to, you know, get out of work early and, you know, not do things. So what I did was I put myself in as many situations as possible. So, you know, if I'm on echo month and all the echoes were red, I scrubbed cases, even though I didn't have to. I, you know, made sure, you know, I was really good friends with the nursing staff and the cath lab techs, and like everybody always looked out for me, and they, you know, they always put a good word in for me to the attendings, because you'll realize that the attendings are always listening, and they're always, you know, kind of not judging, but they're making their assessment of you as a fellow. So if they know your number one thing is, if they know you're not lazy and you're a hard worker, your reputation's solid. It doesn't matter how much you know. They just know that you want to be there and you want to get better. And that's the number one thing people look for. Luckily, there was a new guy that started at McLaren when I was a general fellow, and he trained at Beaumont, and I always wanted to go there. So that immediately gravitated me towards him. His dad actually tried to recruit my dad back in the day to join his practice. So he knew the name. He knew my name at least. And so we started talking about it. And, you know, he basically was super cool, and, you know, always was looking, you know, he always wanted me to get better as a trainee and a doctor. And so I basically told him, I was like, hey, you know, hey, Dr. Zacharias, can you please, you know, what do I need to do to get a spot at Beaumont? Or what do I need to do to be an interventional cardiologist? And he's the same guy that told me not to do EP, because he wanted me to do interventional so bad. And he went out on a limb with his reputation and called the program director, who he had a great reputation with at Beaumont, and he put his name out there for me to get a spot. And, you know, then when I got there, I knew I had to kill it, because I owed it to him. You know, I can't make him look bad. So, you know, he did everything to kind of put me in a good position. And, you know, it was all because I basically asked him. I went up to him after I proved myself to him that I was a good person. I went up to him and said, please help me. And he did. And so that's what I always tell people. If you don't ask for help, or you don't ask for a position or anything, you're not going to get it. You have to just put yourself out there. And if they say no, they say no. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is tough to put yourself out there. But like you're saying, and that's like probably some of the best advice that I've gotten, and I'm sure a lot of other people have gotten too, is that you have to ask for what you want. Things are never going to be handed to you. And like you just said so wonderfully, that if you're not going to put yourself out there, and if you're not going to ask for it, you're never going to know if there was an opportunity there or not for you to take, you know? And a lot of these jobs, a lot of these places don't advertise, you know, like on a website or whatever, for you to know that there's a job opening there. Like a lot of times you're never going to know unless you make that phone call, or, you know, send that email or whatever. And using your network is so key. Like it is so key, because you never know who's friends with so-and-so at whatever practice that maybe you were eyeing for, you know, the past couple of years, and, you know, that's going to be your dream job, and they can make that phone call for you and make it happen. So I totally agree. It's, you know, putting yourself out there, it's tough, but it's totally worth it, because you can get the best opportunities that way for sure. All right, Jay, so we're actually running out of time here. So do you have any final words that you want to give to our audience?
You know, we went over a lot of really good stuff, and I'm glad we did, because I really want the younger generation to kind of hear us talk, especially people like in our age group, and we're kind of the newer people.
Yeah.
We're the most relatable to them. And I always tell everyone, like, if you guys have any questions, email me, DM me, call me, whatever. I'm here to help you. I was in this position, and, you know, I had to kind of build the network that I had to build, but we're kind of in a different era where you have the ability to reach out to all these big people. And like I said earlier, if you don't do it, you're never going to get any help. And, you know, do it, because I think a lot of people will reach out back to you, and they'll lead you in a good direction, or at least, you know, point you of what you need to do. And then the next thing is basically do what you want to do, and do it because you love to do it. I love cardiology, as you can tell, and I take it so to heart that I'm a cardiology nerd. I love it. Because it's something that I know that I'm good at, and that I can get better at, and I can advance the field. And, you know, there's so much more that we can accomplish. And it's such an amazing field. And I always tell, you know, you guys brought up like women in cardiology. It's awesome to have women in cardiology. And it's so disappointing that people have this mindset that it's a bad lifestyle, and that's why they don't do it. And that's all the general surgeon women that go into general surgery. They should go into cardiology. They should be interventional cardiology, because we have better life than them. And the other thing is, we have such a tight knit group of people. Like people in cardiology, like it seems like a big field, but it's not. Like you can, through Twitter and Instagram, and even just through the local hospitals, you become really close with your colleagues. And it's really awesome, the collaboration that we have. And obviously you can see that with, you know, cardiology research leads the way out of any field. And it's because we collaborate so well. And one of the things, you know, that I really saw that happen was we did that COVID Cardiology Coalition. And we had over 300 fellows that came together on a WhatsApp group.
That's
and we
amazing.
still talk. Yeah.
Awesome.
Like I just asked them a question today and got a great answer about, you know, when to go back to work if you're testing positive for COVID. But like, I get all these like really good opinions from the colleagues and peers that I have, and they share great resources with me. And it's just awesome that everyone connects just because of the common interest of cardiology. So for all of those that are, you know, considering a different field, you should really consider our field, because it's awesome. And I have no regrets whatsoever that I chose it. And, you know, I look forward to what the future is going to bring.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a busy guy, and you're going to be starting, you know, you're attending SHIP soon, and you're studying for boards, and all this stuff is going on, but we really appreciate you taking out time to chat with us and give such great advice. And I'm sure a lot of people are really going to value that advice. And yeah, I hope that this helps a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. This is a great idea. And I really hope a lot of people benefit from this.
Definitely. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.